Welcome back, everybody. This is Parker with Take His Whistle, and it's been a while, but me and Josh are back, and almost like a regular guest, Caleb is also with us. So obviously, it's rivalry week, so just stay tuned because we got a decent amount to talk about.
Oh, come on! Somebody take his whistle!
What's going on, everybody? This is Parker with Take His Whistle. With me, always, is my co-host, Josh. Josh, how are you, my friend?
I'm good, Parker. I'm good. I'm tired, but it is what it is.
Yeah, no, this last week before Thanksgiving is always a bitch for anyone, anywhere. Caleb, obviously, you see him was with us the last time we recorded about a month ago, and he is back once again because, like last year, we had him on for the Louisville versus Kentucky rivalry game in football. Caleb, how have you been in this past month since we last seen you?
I've been good. Just really antsy this week. It's gonna be hell waiting for this game this Saturday. So
Right. Well, I mean, Louisville. I mean, I guess Kentucky and Louisville, but mainly Louisville got some big things in basketball before the game even starts. They got quite the tournament starting. Was that Wednesday or Thursday?
it's
Wednesday.
Wednesday. We start playing Indiana at noon in the Bahamas tournament.
Yeah.
Bahama.
So they got some business to take care of before that football game starts. But Josh, like I said, last week talked about either of our teams was about a month ago, and a lot has happened for both teams. Josh, let's start with Louisville here. They've kind of been up and down since that moment. Had some really good moments, and also some moments that are definitely forgettable. Josh, what have you liked since about week 6 until, I guess, going into week 12 now, or 13, or whatever it is?
Yeah, so at the time, I think we were, what was it, Caleb? One loss team at the time? Two loss
Yeah,
team? I think we were a
one
one
loss.
loss team going into SMU, and
Mhm.
and now we're a 4 loss team. So, it is what it is. It hasn't been the season that we wanted. I personally, not that I expected something like this, but it was definitely like my expectations weren't higher than this because I mean, if we're being completely honest, Louisville as a program isn't like a yearly 10-win team. You know what I mean? And that's just the truth. That's just the hard truth. Obviously, after last year, you want to make it back to Charlotte. You want to have a better season than what we've had. And, at the end of the day, our losses are to very good teams. The 3 losses, other than the worst loss you can possibly have, the other 3 losses to Miami, SMU, and Notre Dame, all 3 of those teams are going to the playoffs. So 3 losses to playoff teams, 3 losses to 3. They'll make it. 3 losses to top 12 teams. I mean, not that I would take that, but in this regard, I'll take that. Obviously, the other loss I'm referring to quite possibly one of, if not the worst team in college football. Stanford, that's an unacceptable loss. And honestly, if you don't lose that game, we're probably at number 12 right now and looking to make the playoffs. But it is what it is.
Yeah. Caleb, you got anything to piggyback off that?
Yeah, I feel like I was really confident going into the Stanford game. I was looking forward to see the backup quarterbacks get some reps and stuff.
Oh yeah, of
Um,
course.
Obviously, it did not turn out that way. Going into that game last week, our only 3 losses had been against teams that were all in the top 12, and all 3 of those losses were all by 1 possession. I think the Stanford game, we just kind of lost focus. We were up 15 with like 8 minutes or so left, and we were just like, all right, let's pack our stuff up and hit the road. And you can't do that against anybody because on any given day, especially in the ACC, it doesn't matter who you're playing. If one team shows up and another one doesn't, you can lose. Um, and we were just unfocused, ended up blowing that game, and that sucks. But I feel like this season will always go down as the what could have been season because I think we're a lot better than our record shows. Um, we probably should have beat Notre Dame, should have beat SMU for sure. Miami was a shootout. We easily could have won that game. And, it's just that's the way it goes with college football. That's why we love the game so much. But I just kind of feel like this season will always be the season that what could have been. It could have been really, really good. But we did beat Clemson, so we got that monkey off our back. Clemson's
Right.
a really good team.
In
They'd
Death
only
Valley,
lost
too.
in Death Valley. That's like one of the, if not the hardest place to play in college football.
Right.
And their record over the last decade and a half shows that. They've only lost, I think, like 2 home games, and they haven't lost a single night game at home in the last like 11 years. So I was happy about that, but it's just kind of underwhelming, honestly. But we're still a good team. I'm
Yeah,
proud of it.
right.
So
And or no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I will say one thing. We have 4 losses, but going into this game against Kentucky, there's a pretty solid chance because of our resume that if we beat Kentucky, we could finish the season ranked, which is honestly that's at this point in the season, it's kind of all you can ask for. It's a bit of a stretch. I don't know if we were receiving votes this last week, but I heard we were. I heard we were. So, if you could finish off the season ranked in that 20 to 25 range, that's better than nothing.
Which, we'll get into that a little bit later. But do you think beating a 4-win Kentucky team is enough to get you ranked, even though it's on the road?
Personally, I don't know. I'm not a voter. I don't know how they vote because sometimes they release questionable things all the time. I know that, you guys know that. So I'm not sure. Maybe they'll toss in some SEC bias in there, but who knows? But yeah, I'm unsure.
Right.
Personally, I think it depends on what happens everywhere else in college football. It's rivalry week,
Yeah,
a lot
I
of
agree.
crazy things happen.
I
But
agree.
at the end of the day, it's not your goal at the beginning of the year to finish the season ranked. With the 12-team playoff,
No.
who cares if you're ranked? Your goal is to be one of those top 12 teams going and playing for a national championship, and that was our goal this year. So if we do end up being ranked at the end of the season, it's whatever. I really don't care.
Right.
You know.
Well, yeah, and so looking at Louisville's season so far, for whatever reason, and this has been really the past 2 years since Brohm has been there, they have played these top tier teams very competitively. Like, even in games they have lost, none of them, Louisville has yet to be blown out in any of those games, right? But on the other side, for whatever reason, whenever Louisville plays these lesser tier teams, that they are favored by multiple possessions. For whatever reason, it seems like that other team, like Louisville, plays down to them, right? Like, you saw it against Virginia, Boston College, and Stanford, and I can't count how many times just in the past 2 years Louisville has been down to teams like that and came back and won, right? And so that obviously that it says something for its own, is that Louisville has been down in these games, but always just finds a way to win. But at the same time, it's like, why are they constantly getting into these dogfights with teams that they are leaps and bounds better than? Do either of you guys have any type of take on that?
No, I agree. We saw it last year with the Pitt game. We saw it this year with Stanford. It's been the same thing last year and this year, especially this year. Like, this year specifically is just so it's so unacceptable this year compared to the Pitt loss last year. The Pitt loss, like, we get it. You beat Notre Dame. You overlooked Pitt. Like, Pitt was really bad last year at the time, and you walk into that game thinking you're gonna win, and you don't. Bad weather, whatever you want to say. The Stanford game, I don't care how long of a flight that is to California. I don't care. That is not a loss that you can give up, and especially in the manner that it happened. And on top of that, you're coming off a damn bye week. You beat Clemson. You have a whole week to celebrate it, and then you have to go and play Stanford. And it's like Caleb said earlier, the fact we were up 2 possessions with 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and we let them score twice to bring it back and eventually beat us on a game-winning field goal. And also, the penalties that happened at that end of the game, I don't know what they were thinking. Like, one of our players decided to get into it with them on the sideline and get an unnecessary roughness penalty, and then decided to do it again after the game, which is besides the fact. You guys get what I mean. And then Quincy Riley jumps off sides on a 57-yard field goal. He's one of our best players, if not the best player. But stuff like that, it hurts. It's tough.
Right.
You shouldn't be jumping off sides on a 57-yard field goal.
Yeah. And to add on to that, there's always two things you can count on, at least throughout the history of Jeff Brohm's head coaching career. This has happened every year. They beat a really, really good team that nobody expects them to win, and then the very next week they lose to a really bad team that they should blow out of the water. I mean, you saw it last week.
Yeah.
Last year, damn near nobody thought we were going to beat Notre Dame unless they were wearing red and black. And then after we beat Notre Dame, we go to Pitt against a really bad Pitt team and we lose very embarrassingly. And then this year, the same thing happens. We beat a Clemson team that's really, really good in a really hard road game. And then the next week, we go and lose to Stanford, of all teams. So, I mean, it's really obviously I was surprised by it. But when it happened, I was just like, really, again? Like, again? You kidding me? So, it's just a pattern.
Yeah. Give me just 1 second. I will be right back. You guys entertain yourselves just for a second.
All right, got you. But yeah, I mean, Caleb, further on what Parker was just saying, like I do think it's something we need to fix. It's something that Brohm, like, as much as we all love him, it's something he needs to get under control. And you were mentioning that he's done it all his entire career. I mean, just look back at his biggest upset win, the absolute stomping he had against Ohio State back in 2018, and then he follows it up getting blown out by Michigan State, who has not been the same in years. It's a problem, and I would love to see it fixed, but that's one of those things with coaches where it's like, it's the same thing with James Franklin or Ryan Day or literally any other head coach you can think of, where they have a narrative that they can't win big games or that they can't win the game or whatever it may be. Like, I'm worried that this is a trait that just can't be erased. As much as it seems like a problem that can be, it's just something with head coaches everywhere that it's a little worrisome.
For sure.
Well, I kind of missed that last half of that conversation. I guess we'll touch back onto Louisville, but we're gonna pause on them real quick. We're gonna hop onto the other side, the blue side, which is the University of Kentucky, where Louisville had ups and downs this season. It just feels like I guess we had a couple ups. We had a couple ups, but for the most part, it's just been a downward spiral from seems like week 2. Kentucky is going into this game right now with 4 wins and no chance to become bowl eligible after their recent loss to Texas. And I mean, the most obvious thing about Kentucky is just bad quarterback play, bad offensive line play. And Josh, I know I've talked to you about this in the past, especially last year, how I just never gave up on Devin Leary. And I just was like, he's my quarterback. I'm sticking it through, like, to the end. I would be lying if I said I did not miss Devin Leary. I want him back so bad. After seeing this season with Brock Vandagriff, like, he's got you look at him and he's got the intangibles. He is a big body. He can run. He's athletic. He's not afraid to get hit. He's got a monster arm, or can. But, like, you put it all together and there's just nothing there. It's just nobody's home. Nobody's home. And he looks absolutely terrified. Even 11 games in, he just looks so scared when he's got the ball. He doesn't cycle through his options. He doesn't look through all his receivers. And so it has left us with some really bad losses. And especially the 3 losses that I mainly want to talk about is Auburn, Florida, and Vanderbilt. And not saying, because, I mean, Vanderbilt is having a once-in-a-lifetime season. Florida has actually turned out to be a really good team. Auburn was just a bad loss. Yeah, DJ Lagway's been great. But we just with the fact that we don't walk away with not one of those wins, not one of them. Florida, it was an all-out collapse. Our defense played horrible that game. We let Florida put up 48 points against us. But our defense played fairly good against Vanderbilt and Auburn. It's just our offense is just so bad. And I saw a stat, I don't remember it off the top of my head, but I believe it's something like in SEC play, Kentucky as a team has they have 10 touchdowns to 15 turnovers in SEC play. That's bad. That's like bad. I don't even know what word it is for that, but it's bad. The good things is obviously the Ole Miss win, and really any time that Kentucky has been an underdog this season, we have competed. Now, is that other teams playing down to Kentucky? Maybe, or maybe Kentucky has been able to be competitive in those games, right? In games that we have been underdogs in, we have a average deficit of loss is 6, right? Out of all those games, it's 6, including the 3-point win against Ole Miss. So we have been competitive in those games. Our defense have came to play in those games. It's nothing is on the defense really. It's just that offense is just so bad for Kentucky. It's just not even funny. I guess I don't want to sit there and talk about Vandegrift too much because recent news today, Cutter Boley has been named the starter already this early in the season, or in the week. This early in the week as the starter against Louisville coming up. And Boley, we've seen him a couple times this year. Definitely got his most experience this past week against Texas. And it could be because we've had to deal with Vandegrift this whole season. Watching Boley play is really fun as a Kentucky fan. It was fun to watch him play. Even though we really didn't score touchdowns when he was playing, it was fun to see him move the ball and actually play like a quarterback. He wasn't scared to throw it. He cycled through his options, unlike Vandegrift. And so the freshly 17-year-old is now the starting quarterback for our university. Josh, or I guess, let me ask Caleb this. Caleb, just this season alone, and whether you want to talk about Vandegrift or not, would you say it's just a flat out just coaching just meltdown from everyone else, or is it another reason why Kentucky has so much talent on this team, and for whatever reason they haven't been able to put it together this year?
Well, I think it's multiple things. Obviously, Vandegrift was really a disappointment, which honestly, I'm not saying I was right, but I wasn't surprised by it. Obviously, he's got all the intangibles like you listed, but he was also a backup for a third string backup for 4 years at a different school. Granted, it's Georgia. It's Georgia, so you got to give him a little bit of leeway for that. How hard is it to start at Georgia? It's one of the hardest places to earn the starting quarterback spot, especially
Right.
behind Stetson Bennett and Carson Beck. So but I think
Carson Beck ain't been that great.
no, not recently. But I will say, I really wouldn't be surprised if what happened with Mark Stoops in the offseason kind of led to this. His players maybe, I don't want to say quitting on him because obviously they're out there all the time playing hard. But he tried to go out the back door in the middle of the night at Texas A&M, and if I'm a player and my coach, without saying a word, tries to leave and then decides he wants to come back, I'm like, well, screw you. I don't want to play for you.
Right.
And I'm sure that has something to do with it. Obviously, the offense just been absolutely terrible, and
Right.
the defense has been good at times, but they're insanely inconsistent. Against Auburn, they gave up 300 rushing yards to one player.
Right.
Yes, they held Georgia to 13 points, I think it was. Yes, they did good against Ole Miss, but they also gave 48 up to Florida. Vanderbilt didn't move the ball consistently against Kentucky's defense, but they did enough to get by Kentucky's defense, which a team like Vanderbilt should not be, an offense like Vanderbilt should not be able to go against a defense like Kentucky because they're returning so many starters and key players I mean, you got Dumas Johnson, you've got Maxwell Harrison, you've got Deion Walker, you got J.J. Weaver. You've got all those guys on defense who are experienced, and especially experienced in SEC play, and they're veterans. Um, Kentucky is a very talented team, at least on the defensive side of the ball. They've got a few key players on offense, like Barry and Brown, who's kind of underwhelmed this year, but Dane Key has really stepped up in a major way. Wilcox definitely needs to get more reps. In fact, I think one of the only ways that I could see UK winning this game is if Wilcox gets the number one running back role and they let him
Mhm.
run the ball as much as he possibly can until his shoes fall off, no pun intended. But you know, I just feel like it's been a mix of things. I think it has to do with Stoops trying to leave in the middle of the night, bad coaching. I've been really unimpressed with Bush Hamden as an offensive coordinator. I feel like it's very easy to tell what UK is going to do on offense. But I think Cutter Boley being named the starting quarterback is a good move by Stoops. He's obviously the one who's shown the most out of Vandegrift and Wimsat. But I mean, I also kind of see it as a little bit of a desperation move. But if I was in Stoops' shoes, it's a no-brainer. Like Brock can't do anything. Wimsat's pretty much a one-trick pony. But Cutter Boley, he can whip that thing around, man. So I'm very
And
anxious to see what this Kentucky team looks like coming out Saturday.
but yeah, so that what your last part there is a whole different conversation that I do want to have later. But that's one thing that has really gotten on my nerves this year, and that leads into a whole coaching topic. And I really don't want to talk about what's next for Kentucky, whether Stoops stays, whether he goes, and stuff like that. I don't want to have that conversation just yet, just because there is a whole other game left, and he's going to be our coach for one more week, regardless. But one thing that has really bothered me is it has gone on for so long, the lack of making a change,
Hmm.
right? As far as Stoops goes, Vandegrift has very clearly not been the guy at Kentucky for quite some time, right? Like week 2 against South Carolina, the dude had what, 30 passing yards, 50 passing yards, something like that.
No, he had like 9, I think.
I think he had that. I think it was more like 30-ish. I don't think it was as bad as 9, but it
He
was
had a
still pretty
QBR of zero. No, he had a QBR of 0.9 is what it was.
okay.
That's what
That's
I'm
really,
thinking.
really bad. Um, Gavin Wimsett was arguably the worst Division One starter last year, FBS level for Rutgers. He was horrible, right? Now, I think he would have, if they would have made the move to make him our starting quarterback, I think that it would have been better. I think our offense would have honestly looked better. But now you get Boley, who has gotten experience here and there. Why is it taking to the last week of football to make a change? Why? And the same thing happens with Jamarian Wilcox, right? Now,
Mm.
I don't want to hate on Sumo, because Sumo has kind of been underrated this year. He's had a pretty solid year, all things considered. Nothing that's going to blow you away, but he has been a solid year as a career backup. Obviously, Chip, I don't even know what's going on with Chip Trainum this year. Like, it's super weird. He's played in like just enough games not to redshirt, but he hasn't done, like, he's just ready to end his college career. It's super weird. When Jamarian plays, though, he is making a difference. Like, he is putting up really good numbers. But like against Texas, he didn't start running the ball until like halfway through the second quarter, right? Like the whole first quarter and periodically throughout the game, it was Sumo being the main running back. But whenever Jamarian comes in, he is just the better runner. And I'm like, why? What is it that, like, why are you being so? I get it, they're young, they're inexperienced, but why are you being so like stingy with making a change when it's
Stubborn.
clearly the right decision? Right? Yeah, it's stubbornness is a really good way to put it. Like, is it just like he's like, nope, this is how I want it, and it's gonna be like this regardless. And he gets back. It's like if he gets backlash, he's like, no, I'll show you. I'm gonna keep him in.
Hmm.
So I mean, and
And
like
I would absolutely. Sorry, go ahead.
and I was just saying, I'm going back to the Ole Miss game. Whenever Kentucky went for it at like fourth and like 10, 20, something like that, all the way back in our own territory with the game on the line. Nobody thought we were going to go for it, but we went for it, converted it, and ended up winning the game off that. And he even said in that post game interview, he's like, "Oh, well, maybe I was wrong." Like, and it's like you learned that lesson right there against Ole Miss, and you just never use it again for the rest of the season. Like
Yeah.
it was just a one-time, just like I don't know. It's very frustrating because I personally think if Cutter Boley was the starter from I don't know, let's just say from the Vanderbilt game to now, which I think was more than enough time to realize that Vandergriff was not the guy. Kentucky would at least have a chance to become bowl eligible this Saturday, right? Not saying we would have. We could have easily lost all the same games, but I guarantee we would have. There's a way better chance we beat Vanderbilt, Florida, or Auburn as Boley with our quarterback. We would have lost to Texas regardless. And so we could have been bowl eligible or at least 5 wins having a chance to be. And it's not because nobody wanted to make a move. Nobody wanted to make a change when it clearly was not working. Josh, you got anything to add? You kind of.
Yeah, no, I mean, Caleb kind of said everything that I wanted to say. I mean, the biggest thing for me is like the fact that Wilcox is just now getting meaningful snaps in the last 3 games, now going on to the last 4 games of the season. Obviously, his carries are TBD for the Louisville game, but like I don't know if he is the starting back, as in like when they come out on the field for the first possession, if he's the guy that's out there in the huddle.
He probably won't be.
What I'm gonna compare it to is how quick Jeff Brohm made Isaac Brown the starting running back for us. It was like week 3 or week 4. I think it was after Georgia Tech, which was week 3 for us.
It was.
He was like, I can't keep this kid off the field. He's way too talented. He's way too good, and he's making a difference. And so
Isaac Brown is also a true freshman, right? Or is he a redshirt?
No, he's a true freshman.
True freshman.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
same exact age.
Yeah, same exact thing with Jamarian, and the kid's making a difference. So what's he do? Obviously, Maurice Turner goes down with an injury. Maurice Turner just played in his first game since week 3 on Saturday. He's probably gone after this year, if we're being honest. He's probably hitting the portal. But Isaac Brown becomes the starting running back, doesn't turn back. Literally, has become one of the best freshmen in the country, and honestly, one of the best running backs in the country.
Well, Duke Watson too. It's not just Isaac.
Yeah, and our other true freshman running back. Yeah.
They both lead FB. They're both in the top 10 in FBS in yards per carry, and they're both true freshmen.
Yeah,
and I guess continuing to compare, we also have another stud running back there in Jason Patterson as well. He has not got the experience like Jamarian has. We haven't seen him that much, but I mean, from everything I've heard since he has been at Kentucky, he is the future. And so it seems like it's the exact same thing. You guys are actually starting your freshmen or your inexperienced guys, whereas Kentucky is like no.
I mean, yeah. Well, first off, I really hope we can keep them in Louisville jerseys. I feel like it might be a little hard to keep them both, considering they both might want to be the lead back. So I'm not sure how easy it'll be to convince them to be in a 2-back system. I'm mainly talking to Duke because Isaac Brown's already probably got that spot secured for next year. But as far as it goes with youngsters, and this goes for Cutter Boley too, the more experience they get, yes, they're not going to be great. You're not expecting them to be great, but the more experience that they get is the better. It's Peyton Manning's philosophy. Don't pull these rookie quarterbacks if they're throwing, an interception a game. Because those interceptions are how they learn. It's how they get better. It's what happened to Peyton Manning. He has the record for most interceptions in a season by a rookie, maybe even by a quarterback in general. And he turned out to be one of the greatest of all time. Obviously, not every quarterback is Peyton Manning. Not every quarterback's going to be that. But the fact you don't make that quarterback switch earlier in the season, and obviously we're not coaches, so maybe Cutter wasn't ready earlier in the season. But you throw him in for the first time, last week before Texas, and he played great. He did really good against Murray State. And then you throw him in against Texas, and he impresses again. He didn't throw any touchdowns, but the throws he was making, you can tell that he's calculated, and he's making his reads, and he's doing the right thing. Whereas your other quarterback has shown no signs of any of that. So
yeah.
if he's good enough when you first throw him out there this late in the season, I have no reason to believe that he wasn't that good earlier in the season either.
And yeah, I mean,
And
and talking about experience, I mean, the kid got put in the situation in the second half in Austin, Texas, in a competitive game. Was his first like meaningful playing time, and then his first ever start is gonna be rivalry week against Louisville, a very good Louisville team at that. Like, I mean, the kid is getting the experience. Like, that's gonna like I am excited about that. I mean, I'm sure his nerves are through the roof, but I mean, as far as experience goes, that kid is getting it for sure.
I mean, he's getting thrown into the frying pan for sure. We actually did the same thing with Lamar, and I don't know if you remember, Parker.
yeah.
2015, we were losing like 28-0 to Kentucky in 2015. We throw a true freshman Lamar Jackson in there, and he has a freaking career day and brings us back to win the game by I think like 2 touchdowns. So I
So,
mean,
are you
it's not.
saying Cutter Boley is a future husband?
No, that's not what I'm
It's
saying.
it's
I'm
hard to
I'm just
tell right
I'm just
now.
saying, it's college football. You know, the parody. This game is
Right,
full of parody. Like anything can
right.
happen on any given day.
I mean,
So
well, just for an example, let's take a look at a different team in the SEC. Let's take a look at Florida. You know,
Hmm.
Graham Mertz goes down. DJ Lagway
yeah.
comes in. He looks good. He looks okay for that game. Next game comes around. Billy Napier's like, nah, Graham Mertz is our guy. We're putting him back in there. Graham Mertz looks terrible. He makes the switch. He's like, okay, DJ, it's your time. Go shine. Look at Florida now. Look at where they're at
Hmm.
now. They've done already this season what people said they were not going to do.
I mean, we were having conversations about Florida being a one-win team.
Yes.
We're having conversations about firing Billy Napier after he got
Yes.
blown out by
Yes.
UCF in like week 5.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And now that man has saved
he
his
is
job
secured. Yeah,
he has secured his job again, and DJ Lagway looks like the truth. So this is what we're talking about when we're talking about experience. Like if you throw Cutter out there earlier in the season, there's a chance, like Parker, like you said, that you guys could potentially be coming into this game looking for bowl eligibility or just another win to stack on top of that eligibility.
and that's another whole thing. Honestly, is like it. Stoops has got to get on some sort of social media, and I'm sure he reads some of the stuff. But the amount of hate that is being said to him is astronomical. Well, and something that I'm sure Billy Napier did that's kind of similar is look, he's like, okay, look, my job is legitimately in jeopardy right now. I might lose the University of Florida. I'm gonna cop out with this freshman, and if he struggles, it's a freshman. If he does good, I'm the savior, right? The same thing could be applied to Kentucky multiple weeks ago when Kentucky kept losing, kept struggling. Throw in Cutter Boley. He's like, all right, well, I got a freshman quarterback playing. Like, what do you expect? We got a freshman in there. But again, no, he still just decided to go with Vandergriff, and it's just so frustrating. It is by far. I mean, this is equivalent to John Calipari not starting Rob Dillingham and Reed Shepard last year at all, when they were clearly the two best players on that team. And
Well,
Calipari just would not start him regardless. And I'm getting that similar. I'm getting that vibe. I'm getting that similar. Just like I don't know. I see it the same way.
The vibe's there, but the comparison's definitely rough because you're
yeah,
talking
I
about
mean,
two lottery picks, and it's just
I
different. It
understand
is
it,
different. It's different,
but
but I get it.
But
but
I'm just saying.
there is a
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
there's a difference between Kentucky and Florida though, because Mark Stoops isn't going to get fired. He can't get fired. Like they can't afford to fire him. He's got like a $60 million buyout or something. He's
Right.
like the
Yeah.
ninth highest paid coach in college football. Like if they fire
Mhm.
him, they've got to pay him like $59,000 to fire him, and that's after this season. So right now it's even more than that. So I mean,
Mhm.
I understand like, but I do understand dying with a talent over what you've seen so far. Like if I was a Kentucky fan, I would much rather Mark Stoops have started Cutter Boley earlier and just lived by, yeah, we've got the most talent out there at quarterback, but he's inexperienced. I'd much rather die by that sword than the same sword that we've been dying by weeks 1 through 6. So I understand it.
And that also makes me wonder, like as Josh said, maybe earlier this season, Boley really did not look ready, and because I can't imagine going to practice every single day with these guys and seeing Vandergriff the way he plays and what we've seen from Boley so far, and really think that, oh yeah, Vandergriff's still the guy, right?
Well,
Like that
I mean,
it blows my
yeah.
mind. And
Stoops
what
also isn't a
world?
quarterback coach, so
He's not. But you're telling me that Bush Hamden didn't see something, or the actual
mhm.
quarterback coach, like I can't just I don't know. It's a whole topic that it really frustrates me as a Kentucky fan, really seeing that. And I mean, again, like it's hard. I mean, I'm sure Stoops sees it. He has to see it. If he says that he blocks it out, he's a damn lie, because it's impossible,
Okay,
right?
Yeah.
Like, I
so
mean, that dude can't go to groceries without getting joked on right now. So I don't know.
I don't want to interrupt, but I had to look it up because I haven't actually looked it up, and I was genuinely curious. Mark Stoops is the ninth highest paid college football coach in the country, which
Right.
is already absurd. But
Yeah.
however, outside of that fact, before June 30th, 2025, which is this June 30th, Kentucky would have to pay him 3.5 million plus whatever is left over from whatever the new team doesn't pay him if he were to get a new job, or whatever school were to hire him, or you get it. It would be 3.5 million on top of whatever Kentucky has to owe him from what the school doesn't offer him, essentially, is, I believe, if I'm understanding it correctly. After June 30th, it decreases by 500K. So it would go down to 3 million after June 30th. And then each year after that, it would decrease by 500K. So
Well, I was just talking about if they fired him, not if he
yeah,
got a
no,
different job.
yeah, if they fired him, it would be like 44 million. So
And
he would
that's
need
the
he would need to get a new job offer, which I
but that's the thing. People don't realize this. As much as Kentucky fans want him gone, I really don't think he's leaving. He's not. I want him gone, to be honest with you. He's not leaving because he's not going to make that money anywhere else in the country. Point
No,
blank. He's not making that anywhere
no.
else.
No.
Kentucky's not going to fire him, right? Because that's too much money. The only way Stoops leaves is if he leaves on his own. And again, he is taking such a massive pay cut. I don't see him leaving unless he literally is getting like legitimate death threats sent to his family. And I hate saying that, and I hope that never happens. But like, he has no reason to leave. He has
yeah.
no reason to leave. He can continue going 1-7 in SEC play year after year, and he's just gonna keep rolling in a bag over and over and over again, and honestly laughing at every Kentucky fan while he does it.
Well, I've said it for years, kind of just trolling, but there is some truth to it. I've said, UAK is one of the easiest jobs, and if not the easiest in college football, because all you have to do is be competitive against Louisville or beat Louisville, which is what Stoops has done since he's been the head coach. Win 2 or 3 SEC games, and then go to a bowl game every year or every other year, and you'll be the coach there forever. Just because of the history of the program, nobody's really been able to do that. And we saw it a couple of years ago. People were wanting to build Stoops statues, and now they're wanting to, bring out the axes and pitchforks and kill the guy. And
And that also, I mean, that's also just a perk of being at a basketball school,
yeah, exactly. It's also a basketball school on top of that.
And
So
and so that's a whole other conversation as well. I mean, just the fan base interest from Kentucky fans in this game, it's just not there as it normally is, right? It's not as bad, but it's almost compared to Kentucky Louisville basketball last year. Louisville fans really didn't give a fuck. They didn't care,
no, I mean
right?
I watched it, but I was like, we're gonna lose by 50. So
Right. So and again, like I'm not saying it's that bad, but it's kind of similar to that. And our basketball program is just absolutely booming right now. So it's like it's hard to keep the fans interested in football right now when everything else is
right.
going on, and Kentucky football is just the laughing stock in the SEC right now. So again, like I've got a feeling after Saturday happens, win or lose, it's going to be forgotten after like a week, because whenever Kentucky goes to Seattle to play Gonzaga in basketball, everyone's going to forget about Stoops and his BS and whatnot, and they're going to start talking about it again next August. That's just that's how it's always been. That's how it's always felt like, as far as my personal experience as a Kentucky fan. It's just, it sucks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have a question for you, Parker. I'm backtracking with this question a little bit because it has to do with this contract and everything. But
Yeah.
because you all can seemingly not pay him out, or you guys
They
can,
won't.
you
They
guys
won't.
you guys cannot fire him. If you did fire him for whatever reason, if they just throw financial things out the window and they decide to just let him go, he would have to get a new job in order for you guys to make that payout like significantly less. He would have to get a new job. Regardless of if it's a mid-major or not.
Right, right.
It's a necessity to make that payout lower. But because you guys can't fire him, we talked about Mitch Barnhart and his tendency to just pay coaches way too early. How come more people aren't? I guess you can't really get mad at the 80 too much, but how come people aren't upset with Mitch too much at this? Because, I mean, you made him the 9th highest paid coach when he hadn't really done anything. Like at the time
of that contract,
he turned Kentucky football around. At that time, he had made Kentucky football. He had draft picks, like high ones. Josh Allen went I think he went like top 15 or something like that. He had notable players. He made Kentucky football recognizable. But at the same time, he had one 10-win season, which is very impressive in the SEC. But at the same time, it's just
definitely brought. Before Stoops was there, Kentucky was a consistent 2-win team, right? And so, we have seen that improvement almost every single year up until 2022. Will Levis's second year, whenever that was. That was when it started plateauing, and now it's kind of going down. And so you see that, and you're like, okay, well, over, I don't know, give or take 8 years, we have been an actual competitive team, not competing with the big dogs like Alabama and Georgia and Tennessee. But we have been a competitive, okay, this could be a potential trap game with so-and-so coming into Lexington. On top of that, he had 2 10-win seasons in a 3-year span, right? So that's whenever he got that contract. So, I mean, statistically at that time, you're like, okay, yeah, this is good. Now, I still think even at that moment, his contract was still overpaid. Right, even at the pinnacle of his success, the amount of statue builders, people saying he should have a statue, there was $9 million was still way too much for that man. It was. And then I guess
agree with that.
As far as getting mad at Barnhart, I think there is something to be said because he did the same thing with Cal, and I think Cal was obviously different because whenever Cal got his contract, he was like the man,
the guy, yeah.
Not just at Kentucky, but he was like the man in college sports whenever he got that contract. And so you can't really get mad at him there. Again, I think it was way too much. And in hindsight, there's no coach probably worthy of that contract that Calipari got. And then he goes and hires Mark Pope, who a lot of people thought was a bad hire at first, and now it's turned out to be top tier. Right? So it's hard to get mad at Barnhart for doing these certain things because it's also as a extent of just, hey, nah, we're locking this guy up. We're making sure this guy doesn't leave and go have success somewhere else, And so I think that's why, to answer your question, people aren't more or less mad at Barnhart.
It's tough though too. It's really tough because when you talk about Cal, you talk about a guy who left one school where he was the highest paid coach to go to another school where he is the highest paid coach. Whereas when we talk about Mark Stoops, he's the 9th highest paid coach, and if he were to go somewhere else, he would take a massive, massive pay cut. And I don't think that's something. I wouldn't do that. I don't think he would do that either. So it's a tough situation for you all as fans. It's not a tough situation for him at all because at this point in time, he can do whatever the fuck he wants in a season, and he's fine, which is ridiculous.
If I can make $1 million. if I can make $1 million a game and go 4-8, and I'm getting paid $1 million a game, like to go 4-8.
But
Like,
for the record, that's not me saying that he doesn't try. Like, I'm not saying that he's not.
oh
Like,
yeah, for
I'm not
sure.
saying he's like purposely winning 4 games. But
Right.
you get. I think you guys get the point. Like,
Oh yeah.
the expectations for him are significantly low when you can essentially do whatever you want in a season and get away with it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
agree.
and I just I don't know what the answer is, to be honest with you. And again, I think this is the conversation to have after Saturday,
Mhm.
to go more in depth with it, just because.
I mean,
I mean,
even if you guys beat us, I really don't like that. I don't think that is fine.
At this
It's
point,
still
at
not
this point, I
fine.
don't think it's gonna matter.
no, that's not what I'm saying. No, I'm not saying it win or lose, but I'm just saying I don't want to have this conversation of like, yeah, like, okay, he's leaving, or how do we get him gone, and who is going to be our replacement, when like there's still a good chance that like he's still our coach for who knows how many more years, right?
Right.
Like, we
Right.
really don't know, and so that's why I'm like, I want to hold off just until like real like coaching conversations start, and we see other people leaving or getting fired. And so, I mean, I don't want to have that coaching combo just yet. Now,
In a perfect
to add
world,
to your one point though, if Stoop does beat Louisville on Saturday, you will see a lot of fan bases being like, okay, a large part of the fan base, I should
that's
say,
my
be like, okay,
guy.
yeah,
That's my guy.
yeah, no. I mean, I kid you not. I'm not joking when I say this. When we lost to South Carolina, that's when a lot of people, the fire Stoops really started, right? After we beat Ole Miss, you can go to their Instagram right now and go to their comments of that final post and see the amount of just praise that he got. So they went from 2 weeks ago wanting his head to now it's built a statue, right?
Yeah.
If Kentucky beats Louisville, you're gonna get a lot of that again. Be like, oh, okay, he can live to see another day. He can live to see another season.
Well, that's
And
really
again,
what's gotten Stoops to this point and getting the contract that he got, because there were a lot of seasons where, like seasons where UAK beat Louisville, where if they hadn't have beaten Louisville, Stoops probably wouldn't be the coach there anymore, and he wouldn't have gotten the contract that he got, because besides beating Louisville, there really wasn't. Yes, I mean, I will say they did go to bowl games those years and stuff, and they did win those bowl games. I think Stoops went to like 6 or 7 bowl games in a row. But besides that and beating Louisville, he didn't really, like, if it weren't for him beating Louisville, he would not be the coach at UAK anymore. So
oh yeah.
I absolutely agree with you on that one.
And back then it was so different, because now regardless of what anybody says, I refuse to believe that Kentucky cannot be a successful football program. Not in today's world. I think Kentucky has every bit of funding, of whatever you want to call it, to be a successful football program. And for some reason we're not getting those results.
We're already seeing
You
it.
could be like,
We're-
back then you could be like, okay, well, yeah, there's nothing. I mean, he's doing his best, and Kentucky is just not a football school. They're a basketball school and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Now, there's no excuse. There's no excuse now.
we're already seeing that point this year. Look at schools like BYU. Look at schools like Indiana. Look at schools
Oh
like
yeah.
UNLV, who's freshly ranked a couple weeks. Like, there's schools in the playoff race. There's schools in the top 25, and I'm talking specifically about Indiana right now. I don't care if they haven't played anybody, and when they did play somebody,
No,
they
the
got
fact that they
blown
went
out.
10-0 in the
The
first
fact
place.
that they went 10-0 in the first place before Ohio State is not something Indiana does. Indiana is a basketball school. That is a basketball school that has been a nothing school for football forever. And they have mean something this year. We're seeing it now. The effect that NIL, the effect that the transfer portal, the effect that just
I mean,
also,
I mean,
for the record,
Louisville saw
Signetti
it
is
last
like
year.
a top tier coach, but that's another point.
Louisville saw it last year with the amount of portal talent they brought in last year, from going from, what were they the year before Brohm was there?
8-5.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
Oh, they were 8-5 that year?
middle of the pack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that. Well, but they were just a couple years removed from being a 4-3
2-10.
win team.
Yeah,
were they not?
we went
2 and
2-10.
10.
Well,
like in 20.
we went 2-10 5 years before that. That was 2018. That was Bobby's 5th year.
That was
Well,
the year
so-
Bobby got fired.
we've seen it with Louisville, the bringing in a boatload of talent from the portal, what that can do. I mean, it brought you guys to a ACC title game, right? It had you guys top 10 in the country. I mean, Louisville has even seen it. Like you said, Indiana. And Indiana's very impressive because they have really never been anything in football for so long. I refuse to believe that Kentucky can't do it. And the fact that it's not happening, you got to go to the man in charge, and that's Stoops. Point blank.
Yeah.
The only tough part about it is that you guys are in the hardest conference in the country. That's the only thing about it.
Yeah.
But you know that's.
I mean, it's like Indiana though.
It's a
I mean,
whole
I
nother
really
thing.
don't think I don't see Indiana beating Ohio State or Oregon or Penn State anytime soon. I really don't.
I think they could.
'Cause
They could beat Penn State.
I think so.
It depends on what day. It depends on what day. What Penn State team you're going to get. You're going to get Minnesota, Penn State, or what.
Yeah.
Anyways, I guess
let's transition into this game. I think it's about time we get into it.
Yeah. Let's
You want to talk about like key factors?
This
for each team?
specific game. So this is going to be the 36th annual Kentucky versus Louisville football game,
Yeah.
aka the Governor's Cup, Battle of the Bluegrass, whatever you want to call it. Right now, it is coming in all time. Kentucky has 20 wins. Louisville has 15 wins. Louisville, it really seems like Louisville has dominated for majority of the 80s and 90s and early 2000s. Kentucky dominated early.
The
Back
man
whenever
era.
football teams didn't even use pads or anything like that. It was just straight bone
Rugby.
on bone.
Back when it was
Yeah.
rugby.
Yeah.
They were still
And
building
then-
nukes.
Yeah. And now, recently, for the past 6 years or so, it is 6 years, 6 straight, Kentucky has won a lot of those games. Okay. And
Actually, if you want to get technical,
and Louisville
No,
only
no.
has...
It actually is 5. It would be 4 if you.
Oh, is it
if-
5?
yeah,
It'll be
it's
6
it's
this year.
4 if you don't
Yeah,
count
we-
that game. But
Okay,
yeah,
I got
we
you.
didn't
Yeah.
play. We didn't play in 2020 because of COVID.
Yeah.
So
Gotcha.
and if you
Okay.
and if you count that game, that absolutely did happen, but in the record books it didn't happen. Because I'm a firm believer we won the championship in
And I
2013.
was about
so
to say,
cannot-
Louisville
Hey,
has two
I didn't watch
two
that game.
championships in basketball.
it happened. It
All
happened.
right. Louisville only has 2 championships in basketball.
Then the game didn't happen.
All right. That's fair.
That's 4 in a row.
So, anyways, Kentucky got a little bit of a mini win streak going against Louisville. This one being played in Lexington, Kentucky. One team coming off a pretty dominant win against Pitt. The other one coming in I wouldn't say a disappointing loss against Texas, but a game that we lost regardless. Caleb, let's start with you. What are, like you said, key factors in Louisville winning this game?
Well, I think the offense is going to put up points. We've got so many weapons on offense. I really think it's all on the defense, especially with Cutter Boley being named the quarterback. I think that it has to be on the defense. There's really no other way to say it. Louisville has to stop Kentucky on the defensive side of the ball in order to win this game. And I really can't say that I expect them to because, for one, we don't know what a Cutter Boley Kentucky offense looks like for an entire 4 quarters. We have no idea, and that's what scares me about this game because we've seen the talent. The one thing I will say about Cutter Boley, though, is he loves to give up the ball. If you're paying attention, he'll give it to you. So I think really it's about trying to scheme our defense around what Kentucky's going to be trying to do on offense, which we have no freaking idea. So that's great. But, we have to stop Jamarian Wilcox whenever he's running the ball.
If he
We have to
plays.
fill in those gaps. He will play. He'll play unless he forgets his shoes at home or something. He'll play. But it's really about stopping that 1-2 punch of Boley and Wilcox. And I will say I don't really expect Boley to do too much in this game. But I do expect Wilcox to get the heavy hand on offense for Kentucky, and we have to stop him. I think as far as Louisville on offense goes, we have to get Isaac Brown and Duke Watson running the ball big time. Jeff Brom's a really big play action offense guy. He starts with the run to set up the deep ball. I think the key to winning this game as far as offense goes is getting that run started, making UK stack the box, bring their guys in, and leaving our receivers one-on-one on the outside. Nobody can guard Ja'Cory Brooks. And we've had a really good unexpected emergence of freshman wide receiver Kataris Hicks, number 81.
He had a
He's our
great game
slot
last week.
receiver. He did.
Great
I
game
think he had
last week.
6 catches for like 80-something yards. And he had a good game the week before
Don't
too,
let
but
him get a
obviously
first
it was
down
a
either.
loss.
He'll
So
signal that motherfucker for like 10 seconds.
yeah.
That's
Anyways,
everybody now.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean every time Ja'Cory Brooks gets a first down, it's
Yeah.
every single time, I swear. But yeah, I really don't think that anybody, not just on Kentucky's roster, but arguably our entire conference and the majority of college football can guard Ja'Cory Brooks one-on-one. He is that good. You know, there was a meme going around
Nobody's
earlier
yet to
this
do it in
year.
11 games so far. Nobody has
Yeah,
yet to do it.
I mean, the issue with Ja'Cory was staying healthy because that's why he left Alabama. But whenever he was at Alabama, he was Bryce Young's #1 receiving target on a national championship winning team. And he is that guy. And Tyler Shuck has been absolutely amazing for Louisville this year. He has been absolutely awesome. He exceeded everybody's expectations. I think he's got 4 or 5 interceptions on the year, and only like 2 of them are his fault. Uh, 2 of them were drops by receivers. I know one of them was a last-second desperation heave against SMU. Same thing with Miami. But I mean, it's really just about setting up the pass with the run, and Isaac Brown is really just uncatchable once he gets in the open field. We got to get him open. We got to scheme ways around him, which Jeff has always done as a head coach. He always gets his key players involved and gets them open. You saw that with Rondale Moore. You saw it with Jamari Thrash last year. Isaac Brown this year. That's why he's playing so much as a true freshman. Um, but yeah, I really think our offense is going to be fine. I think our defense really needs to put it together though, because there's just so much unexpected in the air when it comes to this game. So we'll just have to see what happens.
Right, right. And I mean, just to add one little point to yours, whenever we have seen Kentucky's defense at its worst, it is normally whenever the opposing team's running back is having a day, right? So, like, that is definitely, like, if there is a weak spot in our defense, I think it is our run game. And, I mean, we've seen it multiple times. Louisville will be able to exploit other teams' run defense. So that is by far a huge bullet point to focus on come Saturday is Louisville's run game against Kentucky's
Oh,
run
uh,
defense.
I also wanted to add Louisville's offensive line has been playing like immaculately for the second half of the season. We've given up 1 sack in like 5 or 6 games. And
Mhm.
our rushing offense, it's like ever since we played Miami, our offense has just been a machine. Like we were tearing people up. And even before that, when we lost at Notre Dame because of some questionable officiating and first quarter blunders by us turning the ball over, I mean, we still put up. We only had, I think we only had 27 points against Notre Dame, or 24 points. But we put up close to 500 yards of total offense against Notre Dame, who is one of the best defenses in the nation, arguably the best we're going to play this year. But our offensive line
Right,
really
right.
struggled earlier this year, and they have massively improved the last half of this season. So it's also going to be on the O line really keeping up that play that they have been playing with. But obviously, UK has a lot more size than most of these ACC teams. They're a big SEC school. You've got Deion Walker there, you've got JJ Weaver right behind him over there. So you know it's going to be tough, but offensive line really needs to keep it going too.
Right, right. Well, Josh, now that Caleb kind of literally pointed out every aspect of the game, pretty sure he
I'm
just called.
sorry.
I'm pretty
I'm
sure he
sorry.
just called a play-by-play. No, Josh, you got anything to piggyback off that? Because that was, in my eyes, if I was looking at it from a Louisville perspective, he pretty much hit everything on the nail.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll just reiterate like some of the things he said. We got to get the Isaac Brown's got to make plays. I'm sure he will because he has all year. Ja'Cory Brooks got to get going. I'm very excited for the Ja'Cory Brooks Maxwell Hairston matchup. I know Caleb said nobody can guard him, but if anybody can guard him, Hairston might be one of those guys because
Very true.
Hairston's a great corner.
Maxwell shut down Isaiah Bond this past week.
Yeah,
Like, shut him down
yeah.
to,
Yeah.
like, what, 1 or 2 catches?
Yeah, that's my point. I'm not a big Maxwell Hairston fan, but I am a fan of his game. He's a very good corner, and so I'm very excited to see that matchup. And well, they probably didn't match up last year because Ja'Cory Brooks was hurt. So never mind. I take that back. But
Yeah, no.
yeah, I'm excited for that matchup. I'm excited to see that trench battle this year because I know last year it was kind of just both D lines kind of honestly just dominated both. Like it was all D line last year. Like both D lines got through in a second. So I'm excited to see that battle. Hopefully the O line for us can be better because I feel like you're gonna mention it, Parker. So I'm not gonna touch on it too much. But your all's O line has been So I feel like our D-line, one of the key features for this game is our D-line getting pressure on Cutter, because like Caleb said, we haven't seen much from Cutter, but like he said, we have seen that he loves to just sling it, like, and I mean, for the most part, he's making those passes count. We saw it twice last week to the two 30-yard bombs to Jamori Macklin. So it's all about pressure, in my opinion. If we can get that pressure from the D-line on Cutter, make him freak out a little bit as a true freshman, he's gonna be nervous already. If you can if you can make him more nervous and force him to make some mistakes, then yeah, that's a big part of it. But at the same time, I'm worried about our defense, because our defense has, honestly, if you ask any Louisville fan, our defense is probably the reason we have 4 losses. So
absolutely,
it's tough. It's a tough situation to be in, but this game is 100%, without a doubt, on the defense.
Right. Well, I mean, I guess for the Kentucky side, I'm gonna go the opposite. I'm gonna say it's on the offense, right? I mean, if like you just said, I mean, the 4 losses Louisville has is because of the defense. We got to exploit that. Somehow we got to find a way to exploit that, and it's hard because I really have no. I mean, same as you all, I have no other further knowledge of what Kentucky is going to look like, and especially with how Stoops is coached this year, who knows? I mean, Bo Allen might come out as our starting quarterback, and he just said Cutter Boley was QB1 just to throw him off. I really have no clue. Now, I guess, again, I think it starts with the offense, but more specifically the offensive line, which has been absolutely abysmal this year. And now I do think Boley did pretty good as far as avoiding contact. He did take a couple sacks against Texas, but he did a lot of times had well enough pocket presence to get out of the pocket before it fully collapsed. And he's a little mobile. He had a little mobility in him.
That's when he's been the best, out of the pocket for sure.
Out of the pocket and running. So I mean, the offensive line just has to get him enough time. You can't let someone like Ashton Gelati just go off and pressure him every single time. And I got a feeling there's a good chance that does happen. There's going to be a whole lot of quarterback pressures from Louisville's defensive line this game. And I mean, another point that I can add, the penalties. And I'm sure you guys can say the same thing about your all squad. The amount of penalties Kentucky lets up is insane. And more specifically, it always happens on big plays. And I don't know if you guys feel the same way about Louisville, but it always is called on the big plays.
Yeah.
A lot of the times it had nothing to do with the play at all. Like, it would not have affected anything whatsoever. It was that holding, right? And it's so insanely frustrating, the holdings, and I mean, really, the unsportsmanlike conducts. We've gotten a lot of those. I'm sure I know Louisville has got a couple as well. All in all, it's going to be a high penalty game. If it's not, I don't know. But I got a feeling it's going to be a high penalty game. Or who knows? It could be a very small penalized game. They might just let them play.
Could be like last year, and magically
that was
no
some bullshit, bro. I'm still not over that shit. I do have a question though.
Yeah.
If Louisville wins this game, what are the odds that Chris Bell and Barry and Brown both crash out and murder each other on the field after the game?
Barry and Brown's been waiting on somebody to retaliate on him, because he has just been going off. And Josh, me and you saw firsthand what type of
such a crash out.
He was on last year at the Louisville game, bro. He did not care. Did not care.
I'll tell you what. And you know what? I'm going to say this in general as Kentucky as a whole. For one, if anybody's getting up for this game, it's Barry and fucking Brown. That man gets ready for this game like nobody else I've seen. And for some reason, Mark Stoops gets his guys up for this game specifically every year. Like, without fail, he has gotten them ready for this game specifically every year, and they have
even when they were terrible,
and they have performed better in this series of games than they have, like Caleb said, all year. We saw it last year. They played their best game against Louisville, and so
I mean, I've always said it. The 2 games that Stoops really gets his guys prepared for is Louisville and Georgia. For whatever reason, we always play Georgia fairly well, and we always play Louisville really well. So, those are the 2 games that you can probably see Kentucky at their best normally. And I've said this all year long, and Louisville fans have disagreed with me. Last year's Kentucky team would run laps over this year's team, in my opinion. And a lot of Louisville fans would be like, "Oh, well, you guys said that last year." And I'm like,
The-
"Yeah, we did. I mean, last year's team was much worse than the year before that, but this year's team is so bad." And yeah, I guess Louisville did take a step back from their last year's team. Actually, before I continue on with this, I want to make sure you guys don't have anything else to say because it's going to lead us into predictions of this game.
Well, are you
And I'm gonna
saying this year's or last year's Kentucky team would run laps around this year's Kentucky team or this year's Louisville team?
Yeah. No. Last year's Kentucky team would run laps over this year's Kentucky.
1,000%. Yeah, 1,000%. I thought you were talking about this year's Louisville team because I was going to say this year's Louisville team is probably better than last year's. However, we just have a worse record.
I also think that this year's Louisville team is better than last year's Louisville team, especially on offense. On defense,
less so on defense. If you put last year's defense with this year's offense, I don't think we lose a game last year.
But at our peak this year, like if you look at Clemson, obviously that's a fluke. Like UK beating Ole Miss, that was a fluke. Louisville's defense playing so freaking well against Clemson, that was a fluke. It happens. But like Louisville's defense at their peak, they kind of told on themselves.
Yeah.
Because now we know what they're capable of, and they just haven't been doing it. Like if Louisville's defense has played like they did against like if Louisville's defense has played all season like they did against Clemson, like
or Pitt for that matter.
Pitt. There's a very good chance
very good against Pitt.
There's a very good chance we haven't lost a single game this year because I mean hypotheticals are hypotheticals. If my aunt had a dick, she'd be my uncle, you know. but Louisville's offense has been so good, but our defense has been so it's like it's just I don't know. It's just so aggravating, man. So obviously, I feel your pain, Parker. Obviously, not on that level because we have found ways to win these games. But I absolutely understand your struggle, and I understand what you're getting at.
What can't happen? What can't happen is what happened last year, where we were up and just gave the game away.
Dude,
that can't happen.
We completely gave that game away. We were up by double digits twice with less than 15 minutes and gave it away. Freaking Jack Plummer. I hate you. Wherever you are.
And
Carolina.
That is actually, I think that is Kentucky's key to win, in my opinion. If they do win this game, it is not only forcing turnovers, but scoring off those turnovers. I think is the key to Kentucky winning this game. If they do win this game, you know, I mean, we're really we're not as good as a defense we have. We're not a high turnover team. Like we don't force turnovers as much as you would think with as good as a defense as we do have. We don't force a lot of turnovers. Now we saw it last week against Texas. We had a pick six. If we get a pick six again, I mean that's I think that changes the entire aspect of this ball game. If we can somehow get a score defensively, I think that's Kentucky's key to winning this ball game. Is turnovers and scoring off
the last thing for me, and then we can get into predictions. I'll have to have you tell me, Parker, because I really don't know. But as of the last, 3-ish weeks, when we stopped forcing Ashton Gelati to move up and down the D-line for whatever reason and just kept him at defensive end, he's flipped a switch. He's the Ashton Gelati of last year. Before that, he was completely out of the picture because we would put him at defensive tackle. We'd put him on the other side of the line. Now we're just keeping him at one spot on the line whole game, and it's 2023 Ashton Gelati that we're seeing right now for the last few games. Deion Walker, I have not personally heard much about him this year, but I assume that's just because he's getting double, triple teamed in games, and people are just shutting him out this year, like people have, to be quite honest with you, like Ashton Gelati. But I'm interested to see that comparison this game. Although they do play different positions, they both have massive effect for their team.
Well, and in my opinion, as far as Deion Walker goes, yes, he has taken a step back from last year. He has dealt with a little bit of injury. But mainly, yes, he's being double teamed, but he's doing so much that just doesn't get put up on box scores. Like the amount of plays that he just effects. They had a whole compilation against Texas of specifically Deion Walker, and one of this moves that he has been doing a lot this year that goes so unnoticed is they would have another team would have a running back running to the outside, but just Dion being so strong and so quick forces that running back to cut back inside where, the rest of the team is obviously. And so stuff like that, that's never going to be, no one's ever going to talk about that. That's not a stat you count, but stuff like that he affects the game while being double teamed is what makes him so good. Now, again, I still think he has massively taken a step back, and I think his draft stock has also fallen back a little bit. I mean, who knows?
He'll still go top 15.
You think so?
Yeah,
I was thinking
I
more
don't think so.
top 25. Even then, even if it is still top 15, at one point they were talking about him being a top 5 pick. Like at his peak, he was top 5.
Yeah.
And so I definitely think there's a drop off for sure. I still think he is a elite player in my opinion, and he is going to have some type of footprint in this game. Is he going to have as big of one as Ashton Gelati does? Probably not. Because really, if you're looking at, we have some good talent. Like Keyshawn Silver is another great D lineman that we have. We just don't have that type of talent on our D line that it's like, okay, we have to worry about Kentucky's entire D line. It's not like that. It's okay, we need to focus on Deion Walker. I guess I should say, I would, if I was a Louisville fan, I would let the rest of Kentucky's D line beat me and not Deion Walker.
Well,
that makes sense.
That's what happened last year. We focused on Dion, and JJ Weaver had himself a day with his 6-finger having ass.
And he's hopefully he repeats it. But anyways, let's get into these predictions. Just not necessarily doing rivalry, just doing Louisville, Kentucky. Caleb, because you are the guest, I want to start with you. Give me your winner, your score prediction, and a MVP of this game.
Oh,
all 3 of
them. This is actually, you look at this game on paper, Kentucky, Louisville. 9 times out of 10, you're going Louisville. But when you're looking at the 2 teams on paper, you're not taking into account that Stoops always has his guys ready for this game. He always gets his guys up for this game. You look back at, I think, 2011 or 2012, Stoops' first year, Teddy Bridgewater was a true freshman. He was sitting on the bench. We had to pull, like, I think the year before, this was before transfer portal and everything, so he was using the same roster as before. They almost beat us, and we were ranked like top 10 in the country or some crazy shit. And we had to pull freshman Teddy Bridgewater off the bench to help us beat them. And I think UAK won like 3 games that year, and they still almost beat us. When UAK is at their worst, they play Louisville like it. I don't know. Stoops always gets his guys up for this game every single year, so it's really hard for me to say. I could see this game going a multitude of ways. Either Louisville comes out on top, they come out the gate, and they really just force UAK to play from behind, and they really just don't let UAK get back into this game, or they lose in a really close game that ends up being a shootout. But if I were to pick which one I think is more likely to happen, I would probably say Louisville wins this game and that they win it by multiple scores, 2 to 3 scores. I just don't feel like UAK has the firepower on offense to keep up with Louisville's offense. But if Louisville's defense doesn't perform the way that they should be expected to perform against this UAK offense, then I could absolutely see UAK pulling this one out in a close game. I think it's very possible, with this rivalry with Stoops being the head coach, you can never count them out of this game. But I will say score prediction, and I will preface this by saying I'm being absolutely hopeful. I'm not trying to say I'm being a homer, but I am being hopeful. I'm trying to be optimistic about it. I'm going to say Louisville 35, UAK 17. And I think the MVP of the game for Louisville will be I'm going to say Chris Bell.
A receiver. Wow. Oh, that's not who I thought you were going to say there. Wow, interesting. Okay, yeah, I like it. I like the diversity already, because that's not who, I got a feeling that's not who Josh is going to say. Josh, let me hear yours here. Winner, score prediction, and MVP on this one.
Okay, so historically, it says we're gonna win. We've won more in Lexington than we have at home. So,
That's an interesting stat, actually.
that I think we're like 2 wins above what we are at home in this series. I think it's like 7-5 or something like that. But it's been 5 years since we've won one. Now, if anybody has been listening to this podcast all season, they have heard me say many, many, many times over that I just cannot pick Louisville to win this game because of the last 5 years. I don't have it in me. For whatever reason, Stoops gets his guys up every year. They play their best against us. They, whatever it may be. However, and I said this last year, and there's a chance I'm chewing my own words when come Saturday. I said this last year. I'm gonna say it again this year. This is the worst Kentucky team we have seen in years. And
Yep.
and like Caleb said, this offense cannot move the ball. I get it. It's a new quarterback. It's a true freshman quarterback. There's not a lot of film on him. We don't know what he's going to do. They have a star running back just like we do. He's a great playmaker. They have receivers who can do their thing. But it's probably because I haven't seen anything from Cutter. So I just don't know what that offense is going to bring. And if I have to go off of what I've seen for the whole season, even considering the wide receivers that Cutter's going to have, those guys haven't been able to get separation this season. So if I had to tell you a winner today, I would have to tell you Louisville. I think Louisville's going to win this game. And I tried my best to come up with anything to prevent me from being a homer here, because again, I've said it all year, I just can't select Louisville here. But from what I've seen from Kentucky, it's actually abysmal. I genuinely I can't figure out a way that Kentucky would win this game, even though I know they're going to be ready for this game. And as far as score prediction goes, I actually think it's going to be closer than Caleb thinks, because this game, for some reason, always manages to find a way to be close.
That's fair.
I think it's something similar to last year. Maybe like another score for Louisville to make it a 2-possession game, but I would say something around like the 38-31 range, maybe like 31-28 range. I just the game's always been close, and unless one team has like a generational player on the team like a Lamar and you win 44-17 or something like that, it's always been close. So I can't really seem to find a way to make it seem like a blowout, but especially with the way our defense is, because our defense is bound to give up some points, in my opinion.
Right. And then as far as a MVP goes.
Oh, and as far as an MVP goes, if Louisville is going to win the game, based off my prediction, my MVP's got to be the cop-out. I got to go with Tyler Shuck. I think if anybody were to win the MVP of the game, it would have to be the quarterback. The only other person that could win it, if it's not Tyler Shuck, would be Isaac Brown. Those are the only 2 people that could have the game MVP, in my opinion.
Right. Okay. So we got,
unless Ja'Cory goes like 6 for 3 touchdowns and 200-something yards, but I don't see that happening with that DB matchup he's got.
And so we got a fairly decent, but similar, but fairly decent. Louisville pretty much in the 30s. Kentucky just less than by multiple possessions. And again, back to what you said about last year, going back to last year, I did the same thing pretty much. I could not bet on Kentucky to win it because we just continue to see that just going down every single year. And while like Kentucky keeps going down, Louisville keeps going up. It feels like, especially like the past like three-ish years. And last year I took Louisville. Last year to win. And maybe that was the reason Kentucky ended up winning, was because me solely picked Louisville on a podcast that's gonna have 50 viewers. I picked Louisville over Kentucky.
Only one in the world to do
I'm
it.
not doing that this year. I'm not doing it this year. I'm picking Kentucky. I'm staying with my boys in blue. I think Kentucky's gonna get it done this year again. to make it 5 straight, 6 straight, 6 straight,
6 straight.
right?
That would be 6, yeah.
I'm picking Kentucky. And, I mean, off rip, it's going to be solely because Kentucky is going to come out and shock everybody. And Cutter Boley is going to be the legitimate truth. He is going to be the future. He is going to be the one to save Mark Stoops' job. He is the one that is going to lead Kentucky's to places they have never seen before. I got that much faith in Cutter Boley.
Going to Disneyland.
With that being said, though, I am taking Kentucky. My MVP is going to be Cutter Boley. And as far as a score, I think Kentucky's got the best kicker in football, in my opinion, and Alex Rayner. I'm going 34-31. And I don't know. I don't necessarily want to say game-winning field goal, but it's going to come down to who can make field goals. And Travelstead has had a pretty good season, but we have seen Travelstead miss a few this year, right? And
he's been better on the second stretch of the half of
he's
the season.
better than last year too. Last year, I feel like he missed a boatload. But Alex Rayner, if he gets the snap off, now the biggest problem is just our holder catching the ball. That has been our biggest problem. If he catches the ball, it's automatic. Rayner's making it 100%. And I mean, we saw it against Stanford. Costly errors made put Stanford into field goal range right at the end of the game to win that thing, win or beat Louisville. I think we could see something similar. Hopefully, Stoops has paid the refs to help us out. But if not, I think we're going to get it done. But no, I'm going to go 34-31. Kentucky wins with my MVP being Cutter Boley. Really reviving this offense. And I think the defense gets at least one score offensively to help us out, whether it's a fumble recovery or pick 6.
All right, well.
And honestly, I get it. Like, if I was a Kentucky fan, I wouldn't even, like, consider that UK might lose this game just because of how it's gone recently. Like, I would just be – I couldn't even imagine if I was a UK fan picking Louisville to win this game. So, I understand
I did it last year. I was like, you know what? No, it's not happening this year.
And also, like I'm kind of with Parker. Like, it, not that I'm excited, because I'm definitely more scared than excited about him, but like Cutter Boley, the excitement around him for Kentucky fans, and like the excitement to see what he can do in a full game based off of what he's already done, which is impressive for a true freshman. There's possibilities there. Like the chance is there. Whereas if Vandergriff was starting, Parker, your answer might have been different. But
it would have. I'm not even gonna stutter. It would have. If they're up at, like, what is it? It's Monday night. If there was not a decision already that, like, we didn't know who was gonna be the starter, I would have went with Louisville. But because the news broke this morning, I'm going with Kentucky.
Yeah.
And that's all another thing. Everybody's got fear of the unknown. Well, it's almost like Kentucky right now has excitement for the unknown because how bad we have been. We quite literally have nothing to lose.
Mm-hmm.
The downside is because we're not playing in a bowl game anymore this year. We could potentially see players resting, right? We could potentially see that. I don't think so. I don't think
not for this game.
Yeah, not for this.
And again, I don't think so. But you never know. I mean, the way that bowl games are nowadays, and how just nobody plays a bowl game, it does make me worried that if a team has absolutely quite jack shit to play for, I can see them resting players, but then at the same time, I could also see, like, the guys, like the actual football team, like excluding Stoops, be like, look, I mean, the season has not gone the way it is. Let's try to go out with a bang. And I'm sure, and I mean, Louisville's the exact same way. This is not the season that Louisville expected either, right? They could easily be like, okay, well, let's make this season a season to remember, and let's break the streak, right? So I don't know. I hope it's a very emotional game. I hope it is very just. I don't necessarily want to say fighting, but I do want to see some. I want to see some trash talking. I want to see Barry being on some stuff like that, and like what was it last year? Wasn't some Kentucky players like rubbing their cleats into the Cardinal bird before pregame or something like that? Wasn't that? And I'm sure Louisville has done the same thing to the Kentucky logo as well. But that's what I want to see.
I'm sure we'll get a pregame warm up video on Twitter or something of them getting chirpy at each other.
The whole team. Yeah, I mean that's
definitely going to be a fight for sure.
We
got some
like
D1 crash outs on our team.
Oh, trust me, it goes both ways. It goes both. Now, thank God, thank God Tayon Holloway is no longer on your all's team because then I'd actually be scared for my life, for my players. Yep.
Yeah, they'd get their ass beat if he was on this team.
Well, yeah, there would be there would be some strangulation going on.
But he choked 3 times in 2 days.
Yeah, that's wild. That
He was the one that got that. He was the one that got the unnecessary roughness.
I knew that one. But no, I really hope it is a very emotional game from both sides. I think both sides do have something to play for at the end of the day, even though Louisville definitely has more to play for, in my opinion. I think Kentucky can go out and at least try to help the future of this program. But yeah, I'm excited for Saturday for sure, even if the majority of the Kentucky fan base is not.
Yeah. All right. Well,
do you think it'll be a packed house, Parker? Like, you think it's gonna be full?
That's a good question. That is a good question. I really don't know. I don't know. I mean, I guess like no, but also at the same time, it's like, yeah. I don't know. It's gonna be cold.
It won't be like last year.
Oh no!
Last
60,000
last year's attendance, that was like what you want to see in a rivalry game attendance. Like that place was insane. Yeah, but this year, I mean, I'm sure. I'm sitting here acting like the attendance isn't going to be good. People are going to show up, but I just don't.
Oh, it'll be good.
It's not going to be filled to the brim or anything. Like if you were there in person, you definitely see some empty seats. We'll have to have Caleb send us a picture of the attendance because Caleb will be there.
Yeah, I will.
But we unfortunately will not be.
I think what it does affect it is, I mean, there's so much of our fan base is just so checked out of football right now.
Yeah,
and they're just full basketball and. Luckily our basketball team does not play Saturday. They play Friday. We don't play Saturday. We play Friday. Yeah. So, but anyways, regardless of that, I could definitely.
It's early though.
It's
an early game though. Noon kickoff.
Yeah, but that's always what it is.
Yeah.
I don't know. That is actually a really good question about what the attendance is going to look like.
I wanted to ask a UK fan because I obviously don't know the mindset, but like if I had to guess, I would say it's not going to be that packed, just because UK has been so abysmal this year, and Louisville's just been on the up and up, even though we've dropped a couple really close games. Like I feel like most UK fans are probably of the mind that like the streak's probably going to end this year, and if I was a UK fan and I thought that, I really wouldn't want to be surrounded by a bunch of Louisville fans in a cold ass stadium watching it happen. So.
Yes and no. I get both sides. At the same time, though, I enjoyed last year being next to a bunch of Louisville fans. You know.
Well, I'm sure you did.
In that game. Well, yeah, but that's what I'm saying though. Like, I mean, the same thing would happen though if, like, literally last year is repeated, but just at home this time. Kentucky somehow finds a way to win once again. I would love to be there, and obviously, Caleb, you're going to be there. Josh, me and Josh are not going to be there, unfortunately. And I know if Kentucky does win, and Josh, I'm sure you're the same way. If Louisville does win, you're going to be really kicking yourself, being like, "Damn, I wish I would have went."
Yeah, I mean, it's that way for any game.
Well, yeah, but this
I wish I was at the Miami game, but we lost that game. But I was supposed to go to that one. I just didn't manage to get in there.
Our game going to it definitely dropped off significantly.
Oh, for sure. I don't think we missed a game last year.
No.
To be fair though, like there was a massive gap in between home games for us this year, whereas last year I feel like every week was a home game. Next year we have 8 home games next year, so I'll definitely be back there next year.
Okay.
Football schedules are so weird how they counteract. Like you have one year where it's like all away games, like 3 home games, and then the very next year you have all home games. It's weird.
And the double bye thing is really super weird too. I don't really like that either.
No, it's. I don't think it's weird. I think it's horrible. It's what it is. It's the same thing as like that bye week that we had after the Tennessee game in basketball. Like I'm trying to watch some fucking basketball, man. Like why you're telling me I gotta wait a week? And then to make it worse, that was the fucking week we lost to Stanford. So it was double. It was a shitty week for us. That is rough. Terrible week.
And women's basketball lost to UK.
Yeah, and we lost to UK. And what was it? That was overtime, right? Dude.
That's the beginning of a lot of
UK
losses.
UK
I'm not gonna lie.
UK women's basketball looks good. I'll give it to you.
I'm a
Dude,
fan. I'm a fan of them.
We lost to Stanford. I clicked over to the UK Louisville basketball game, the women's basketball game, and at the end of that, after losing to fucking Stanford and then losing to UK in women's basketball after we've won 9 straight, I was literally just looking at myself like this.
Yeah, that is rough. That is rough. I'm not
bro,
gonna lie, that's rough.
getting
Well,
blown out by Tennessee by 20 and leading into that too.
Yeah.
Like, bro.
as always, Caleb, it was an absolute pleasure having you on the pod, and it's almost like you're a regular guest now, back to back appearances. If you guys are listening and want to follow Caleb on Twitter, his Twitter is at CougarC15 with 2 capital C's. Give him a follow for a bunch of just absolute nonsense. You've been on one this week so far. You have been absolutely on one. I can't like.
Oh, absolutely. Half of it's trolling, bro. I'm not gonna lie.
No, I get it. I never take any of it to heart.
Caleb is a tier 1 Louisville Twitter troll. If
Oh,
you
yeah.
if you are a Kentucky fan or honestly any fan and you want to be triggered weekly,
I feel like
go follow.
I feel like
Caleb.
half the Kentucky fan base on Twitter knows me and they fucking hate me.
Yeah,
But
probably.
it's all in good fun, dude.
I made friends with Kentucky Twitter this past week. I'm in good
I'm in
good graces with
also
them.
segue into that. You can also follow Josh on his Twitter. His Twitter is at IM JOSHWHOUH. That's a lot.
Slow it down if you have to.
Slow it down for sure. You can also obviously follow us on our Take His Whistle, and then you can also follow me on my personal Twitter, which I'm trying to grow my following on that as well. That's going to be at MULHALL, PARKER. Guys, any last words before we end this one off?
Go Cards. That's all I've got.
See
Not
y'all
saying it this
next
time.
week.
Almost said it again. All
Go
right. Well,
Cards.
yep. Yes, sir.
Eat the
Yes, sir.
cats.
We will be back next week, and probably
guys.
a decent amount of college basketball going to be coming
Yes.
your way as far as content comes from the channel.
Yes.
We definitely need to get some of that out. And Caleb, I'm sure you've got a lot to say about that as well.
Yeah.
So we can most definitely have you back on here.
We'll be starting basketball
Other
soon.
than that,
That'd be fun. Thank you all for
appreciate
having me on
everybody that
again.
made
I
it.
just want to say thanks.
No
Yeah,
problem.
of course,
as
of
always.
course, of course. I appreciate everybody that made it this far through the video, and we'll see you guys next week. Peace.
See you, everyone.
Have a great Thanksgiving.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks. Happy Thanksgiving.